Straight all day.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all under the umbrella of one unifying philosophy. Here's the philosophy. It is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is about framing in conversations. We're going to be talking about framing here today. If you don't know what framing is, that's okay, because I'm going to explain what it is. I'm going to explain why it matters. I'm going to explain how it gets used all the time in almost every conversation. There's a frame in that conversation, and how you can start being more strategic about how it happens in the conversation that you engage in. Before we do that, let me tell you, when I have a daily motivation text that I send out free of charge every single day to everyone who is in my text community. This message is guaranteed to keep you focused, sharp, and on point. If you would like to receive this text, all you got to do is text me at my number, which is 305-384-6894. And every day when I send out that daily motivation text, you'll be receiving it free of charge straight to your phone. Secondly, if you have not yet claimed your free copy of my book called The Third Day, The Decision That Separates the Pros from the Amateurs, you should, because this book is all about how you condition yourself and strategically set yourself up to systematically show up and do your job at your best level, even on the days that you don't feel like doing it. There is a process to doing this. I will show you exactly what it is and how to do it and how to set it up for yourself. All you got to do is read my book. It's called The Third Day. I'll give you a free copy. Just cover the shipping. Go to thirddaybook.com. Thirddaybook.com. The book's free. Just cover the shipping. Third, my next live event called Work on Your Game Live is taking place February 3rd and 4th in Miami. A few people have been asking me. We are not streaming this event. There is no live stream. There is no virtual version. Be in the room. All right, be physically in the room. Put your ass where your brain is. All right, if you are serious about taking your game to the next level, invest in yourself, come to this event. If you like what you hear on this show, what we're going to be covering at that event, 3 specific things you're going to walk away with: higher level performance, consistency for that high performance, and the results that come with it. 1, 2, 3. That is what you're going to get out of this event. There's a ton of details that go into how you're going to get those things. Go to workonyourgame.live, and on that page I have listed out everything we're going to be covering. There's going to be more that I'll cover that I don't even have listed on there, because I might come up with some new ideas between now and then. But understand, you're going to be in the room for 2 full days with me and a bunch of like-minded people. If you trust my message and you trust that I know what I'm doing, which both are true, you need to be at workonyourgame.live or Work on Your Game Live by going to workonyourgame.live and getting your ticket to that event. Again, that's February 3rd and 4th in Miami. And listen, write this off on your taxes as a business expense. And fourth, if you want to be coached by me, you want to join my coaching program, I only have 1 coaching program, not 2, not 5, not 3, 1 program. If you want to get in that program, you have to get on a call with me first. The call is free, but I vet everybody who I work with. Go to workonyourgame.net/apply. Workonyourgame.net, put the slash and then put the word apply, APPLY. A schedule will come up for you to pick a time on the calendar that works for you. Make sure it's a time you can actually show up with. Do not no-show any of my calls, because I will not get on another call with you if you do. And then there's a quick application that comes up. Fill out the application, and we will get on the call and talk about what we need to talk about. And I'll tell you what the program looks like, how it works, and all of that. If you are someone that looks like you'd be a good candidate to be in our program, again, that's workonyourgame.net/apply. With all that said, let's get into the topic here today. We're talking about framing. Now, first of all, I want to read something from an article that I wrote about the Kyrie Irving situation that happened. By the time you are hearing this, it's probably a month or so old, but it's a few weeks old from when I'm recording this, and it goes into what we're going to be talking about here today. So what happened in the Kyrie Irving situation, for those of you who don't know, Kyrie's a basketball player. He posted a link to a documentary. It's a documentary that, long story short, makes some claims that the real Jewish people are not these white people you see walking around the United States, but the real Jews are actually black people. And this guy goes through history and he makes his claim and his interpretation of history that black people are the Jews, not the white people in America. And then he makes the person in the documentary, that is, not Kyrie, makes some disparaging remarks about white Jewish people in America. And Kyrie just posted a link to the documentary. He did not give any context. He didn't say anything. He just posted a link to the documentary, and he ended up getting suspended for posting a link to this documentary. And I argue in my article about Kyrie that him posting the link is not anti-Jewish hate. I argue that this is actually the policing of words and thoughts. And it's about the NBA and the media. And the media basically works as the watchdogs for the NBA, because it was those people who were asking Kyrie the questions, not the NBA, but the media. And they were making it clear that you're allowed freedom of speech and using your platform and being, quote unquote, more than an athlete. Y'all remember that? More than an athlete? You can be more than an athlete as long as you're colored within the lines that we have set for you. And that's what this really became about. And the thing is, what Kyrie and Kanye West, both of them, failed to do in their situations where they made remarks that got them labeled as anti-Semitic or hateful or hurtful or harmful or whatever, is that they failed to hold the frame in the conversation. So let me read what I said. This is a parenthetical in my article about Kyrie Irving. This is straight from my article. And you can read this on my Facebook page. You can find it. You can also find it on my Substack, which is workonyourgame.substack.com. So what I just explained to you, and this is quoting, making it clear what the discussion actually is called framing. Framing is deciding what the goalposts are and not allowing them to be moved by your opposition. Trained media people, TV folks and writers, are skilled at it, and it's how they, quote unquote, win arguments. There's also something that Kyrie and Kanye are terrible at, and one of the main reasons why both of them got buried when backlash started to accumulate against them. Colin Kaepernick was terrible at it too, which is why his thing went from black bodies in the street, was what he first said, to disrespecting the flag, was what everybody else said. Cap lost control of the frame and never got it back. Framing is a professional communication skill and something that seasoned against the grain debaters, think Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, heck, even Donald Trump, are really good at, and why they rarely lose arguments. Watch them in interviews and you'll start to notice it. Close quote. Okay, so that's the end of the quote. Now, let's get into what this conversation is about. And this is the critique that I have for both Kanye West and Kyrie Irving in both of their situations, is that when they started to receive backlash for what they were saying, and I had a good idea of what they were both trying to convey, but they both failed to convey clearly and articulately enough, was that they lost the frame of the conversation. Because when people started to come at them and say, well, you're saying this, when they weren't actually saying it, because they failed to hold the frame and say, well, no, I'm not saying that, what I'm saying is this, and be clear about it, they allowed their detractors to change the frame of the situation, shift the terrain of the conversation, and when they lost control of it, that was pretty much it. And that's this exact thing happened to both of them. Also, Colin Kaepernick, again, I use him as an example. It happened to all three of them in these situations because of their failure in communication. That is the one critique that I would have for all of those gentlemen if any of them ever asked me. None of them have, but if they did, this is exactly what I would say to them. And what happens when you fail to hold the frame of the conversation, especially on a hot button topic, is you leave the frame open to be shifted by people who take the worst possible interpretation of your actions and words and use those interpretations against you. All right, that's what happens when you fail to hold the frame. That's why this matters so much. So today we're going to talk about framing in conversations, why it matters, and how to keep control of your own frame, especially when you're talking about a subject that might possibly upset or disturb the people who you're talking to. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is framing in conversations. Number one, framing is simply choosing a terrain and setting the tone for a conversation. That's what a frame is. You choose the ground on which the conversation is going to take place, and you set the tone for the conversation when you are setting the frame. If you ever heard the negative version of framing, it's like the actual definition of framing is to paint a picture against the person using false evidence to make them appear guilty, or some form of crime or a transgression. If somebody says I was framed, it's like somebody gets arrested for murder, but they didn't actually commit the murder because somebody framed them to have been the murderer. They're setting the tone and the grounds of the conversation that you actually did it, and now you got to prove your innocence when everybody's decided that you're guilty. So although that's not the context that I'm using, in which I'm using the word today, the definition is still useful for us, because framing in a conversation is all about making clear exactly what angle you're taking and why. And the thing is, there are many different angles anybody can take on any situation, especially one that's emotional, because when people get emotional, they stop thinking logically and they will go any direction they need to go to try to prove themselves right or to defend themselves, especially when they feel challenged. So that's why it's very important that you get clear on your frames when you're having a conversation. And it's also especially important in any conversation, a topic that can be interpreted in more ways than one. And something that offends a person can be interpreted in 1,000 different ways. So that's pretty much any topic. So, for example, Kyrie Irving, he posted the link to this documentary that is 3 hours and 28 minutes long. Now, in 3 hours and 28 minutes, the documentarian, I think that's a word. You can make several claims and assertions in 3 hours and 28 minutes. That's a lot of assertions you can make. And what Kyrie failed to do when he posted the link to this documentary, especially when the backlash came, he continued to fail to do this, and this is where he lost the situation, was make clear that he was not necessarily co-signing any particular claim being made in the documentary. That's all he had to do. All Kyrie Irving had to say was, look, I posted the link to the documentary because there were some things in that documentary that made me think and were intriguing and interesting to me. Because I posted the link to the doc does not necessarily mean I am co-signing everything that the documentary says. Because the documentary makes like 150 claims. I liked a few of them. I didn't like all of them. And that's why I posted the link to the documentary. I invite you to go watch the documentary and you make your own conclusions about what you think about it. But just because I posted the link to it doesn't mean I'm co-signing every single thing about it. And again, Kyrie could have said this and could have followed it up by saying, hey, a couple years ago, the NBA put Black Lives Matter on the basketball courts. Does that mean you co-sign everything Black Lives Matter is about? The NBA will probably say, no, we don't. We just agree with the idea of the concept of Black Lives Matter. But this is what the NBA did that Kyrie did not do. They made it clear what exactly they were supporting by saying that. Kyrie did not do this, and this is where he lost the situation. So if Kyrie is listening to this, or someone in Kyrie's camp, or if Kyrie ever asked me, Dre, where did I go wrong in that situation? This is what I would tell him. He failed to articulate exactly what he was agreeing with and what he wasn't agreeing with, and he allowed the media to take that situation and basically railroad it into, oh, well, he agrees with everything in the documentary, or he has to prove that he doesn't agree with it, which is some bullshit that the media did to him. But because he didn't articulate anything different, the situation went how it went, because he didn't keep control of the frame. So by not controlling the frame, his detractors were able to come in and attach any hand-picked point being made in that documentary and basically attach it to Kyrie Irving and basically force him to apologize for claims that he had not personally made. Yeah, send him up, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. So this was Kyrie's failure in this situation. So, and then what happened is, then the powers that be decided that they were going to force Kyrie to apologize for claims that he never even made. So he had to apologize for things that are said in a documentary that he didn't make. It's not his documentary. He's not selling it. All he did was post a link to it. Now he has to apologize for things that that documentary said because, again, and he, to this point, as of this recording, he still has not come out and said, look, I like certain parts of it. I don't agree with everything in it. Just because I posted a link doesn't mean I agree with everything in something. And he could give examples of other people doing the exact same thing, but he didn't do this. And this is a mistake on his part. This is something that he would have to be held accountable for. Again, hopefully he has somebody in his life who can actually tell him this. And if he asked me, this is exactly what I would say to him. And I don't think he did anything wrong, but if he wants to ask, did he make a mistake? Is there anywhere that he strategically slipped up? This is where. So now he's apologizing, or they're trying to force him to apologize for stuff that he didn't do. Now, had he wanted to control the frame, Kyrie could have said, as I just said, I'm not necessarily co-signing anything in the documentary, but I just have a right to post a link to it because it's out publicly, it's for sale, it's been on sale for 4 or 5 years. I'm just posting a link to it because it's interesting. He don't even have to say he agrees with anything in it. He said, I don't have to say whether I agree with anything in the documentary at all. I just felt it was interesting. That's why I shared it, and I have a First Amendment right to share that link. I do not have to speak for, defend, or apologize for anything that's in that documentary. Now, had he said that, could he have still gotten suspended and raked through the coals? Yes, but he would have a much stronger case had he said that. But he didn't say that. And that's the challenge here. That would have eliminated anybody handpicking anything out of the doc, because he could have said, look, I'm not saying I agree with anything in it. I'm just posting it, and I got a right to that. But since he didn't do that, now people could use it against him. Moving on to point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is framing in conversations. Number 2, framing is important because it allows you to choose the grounds upon which a conversation is taking place. It's basically you're choosing the canvas upon which the picture is being painted. And when you don't have control over the frame, what happens is your opposition, especially when they are trying to make you look bad, they get to control the parameters of the exchange. And so if you have an antagonistic relationship with whoever you're talking to, let's say it's the media trying to make you look bad, or you're in a debate, or somebody's just trying to, whatever, paint a picture of you being a bad person for whatever reason, they get to control the parameters if you don't set the frame. And if they are clever, they can use that frame against you. And there are some very clever people who work in media. I mean, this is literally what they do for a living. So if you watch people who are really good at debate, you'll notice that they're very good at creating, holding, and maintaining the frame of a conversation, even when their opposition tries to take it from them. So what I mean by this is, let's say when someone tries to move the goalposts on you, or they try to change the subject of a point that you've made, good debaters are good at catching that and pointing it out and not allowing somebody to do it. So when you watch the people who I named, like the Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Candace Owens, Kevin Samuels before he passed away, even Donald Trump when he was president, they were very good at this, at holding the frame of a conversation. In other words, making the person who they're talking to keep talking about the topic that they wanted to talk about, not the topic that anybody else wanted to talk about. And usually people talk about topics that they can be right about and topics in which they know what they're talking about, so they can look like they can look more competent and they can quote unquote win the conversation. This is what skilled communicators do. And all of you who are listening, you can become a skilled communicator. You just need to install these abilities. And guess where we will be talking about this? At Work on Your Game Live, February 3rd and 4th in Miami. I also cover this in my people skills course, which you can get access to at workonyourgameuniversity.com. So skilled communicators are really good at controlling the frame, and they don't allow anyone else to shift the ground underneath their feet. So for example, when Donald Trump, his first few years back, his first debate, well, not his, I don't know if it was his first one, but it was the one that everybody remembers, when he was running for the Republican nomination for president in 2015, before the 2016 election. There was like so many people running for it. It was like 9 people at a debate, and Megyn Kelly, I remember, was running she was moderating the debate. And she called on Donald Trump. She was going to ask him a question, and well, she did ask him a question. She said, well, Mr. Trump, it has been widely put out there, publicized, that you have made some disparaging remarks about women. And before Megyn Kelly could finish the question, Donald Trump interrupted her and said, only Rosie O'Donnell. And everybody laughed, because for years back, before he got into politics, Donald Trump and Rosie O'Donnell had this public war of words. And you know, Donald Trump likes to just belittle and just talk down on people, at least people who he doesn't like. And he had made some disparaging remarks about Rosie, and Rosie had made remarks about him, and it kind of became this funny thing. So when he interrupted Megyn Kelly and said that on the stage when he's running for president, it was really funny, because nobody had ever, you wouldn't think someone who's running for president would even admit to something like that and do it as brashly as he did it. But the whole point is, the reason I'm bringing that up is because Donald Trump did not allow Megyn Kelly to shift the frame and make it him. Because what she was doing by asking that question, she was setting him up to have to defend himself against these allegations that he talks negatively about women, which he probably didn't want to have that conversation, because you're trying to run for president. So you probably don't want women thinking that you talk negatively about them. So he interrupted her, and he shifted the conversation back to his terrain, which is only Rosie O'Donnell. Only got a problem with one woman, not all women, just one woman. And that moment was a pivotal moment for him, because first of all, he grabbed all the attention. He sucked all the air off the stage and put it all on him, and took all the attention off all the other candidates. He made people laugh who already liked him, and he got people who kind of were sleepwalking through paying attention to it to say, damn, this guy actually is honest. At least he admitted he trashed one person. It was a shifting of the frame. And that's the point that I'm pointing out to you, is I'm not saying you have to do this, but this is a good example of it. So all human beings, especially in confrontational situations, will attempt to shift the frame, although most people do it unconsciously when people are in confrontation. So to give you an example, I'll give you another example. I was in a conversation with a person. I will say that this, I'm not gonna say who this person was, but I will say it was a black man, okay? So in this conversation, there's actually 3 people in this conversation, but it was me and another guy were talking, another person was listening. And this black man who I was talking to, he tried to